So this is the second episode of Tion Talks, and today I stumbled over something that was quite funny, in my opinion. Now, you probably won't find this too funny, because it's destroying your economy. So, I live in Ontario, Canada here, and there's a new survey out that the government released. And basically what it is it wants us to help, it wants us to help the government decide how to spend their money. And there's basically options like, help the economy recover, support, basically give more money to businesses and people and build infrastructure. But the funniest part that I saw was there's an option here. Basically, so the provincial government wants to spend $45 billion in this budget plan, and one of the options that they could spend the money on is lowering taxes. Now, this is a pretty funny option, because that what they're trying to promise here is that we could have free government spending with lowered taxes. And if you really think about what that means, is that has to be the most free lunch you could possibly eat. Because the only way you could fund government spending is through paying taxes. Whether you're paying income taxes or sales taxes or tariffs or, capital gains taxes or whatever taxes, that's what funds government spending. And so the new the new survey right here, one option is lowering taxes, and so I don't know how you could even have that as one of your options, because it seems like if you want lowering taxes, you might as well just say, hey, we don't want you to spend $45 billion. Okay, maybe cut back $5 billion. Maybe spend $40 billion. Now, I would like it most if they didn't really spend it at all, because that just distorts the economy. And if we're not paying it through taxes, especially since one of the options that this plan can help with is lowering taxes. And since we're not funding this with taxes, the point is, obviously, we're going to ramp up provincial debt. And of course, they're probably doing this around the province. And so at the end of the day, the federal government's just going to fund it. So, the federal government goes to the central bank, basically prints a lot of money and runs up these huge deficits in order to lower taxes. But the problem is, inflation is not a better way to pay for taxes than filing for an income tax or a provincial tax. So it's really funny how these people in government think that you could have both lowering taxes and government spending. So what you're going to get from this plan is you're basically going to get inflation. You're going to get rising prices. Now, the inflation might not be right away. And that's especially because right now we have major deflation that is counteracted by the massive inflation. And so, I mean, normally we would be getting deflation, but because of all of this fiscal deficit and all of this government spending, we're getting, a load of inflation. And the markets, the stock markets, the bond markets, reflect this inflation very clearly. And I just right now I can see there's an even more unrealistic plan here, which is it's saying making government more efficient. And I think that the best way to make government more efficient is to cut government spending, because government spending alone is not efficient. And trying to make it more efficient by spending more money, that's just pouring gasoline on fire. I mean, how can you make a money losing entity more efficient and lose less money by pouring more money into it? See, that's like, you have an expense, or that's like, let's say you have rent to pay, right? That's like saying, well, we're going to be able to pay less rent if we get a bigger house, or it's something like that, where you're just going to allocate more money into making something that's already inefficient. You're going to try to make it more efficient, but that just can't happen. How you make it more efficient is you take money out of it. Again, if you have an expense or something that's losing you money, how you make it lose less money, if we could word it like that, is by cutting the expense, cutting operations that are unprofitable, not by pouring $45 billion into it. Now, I guess not all of the $45 billion is going into it, but still, I mean, how can you make government more efficient by giving it more money? That doesn't make any sense. And it makes as much sense as lowering taxes just to, increasing government spending just to lower taxes. Because the government's only source of revenue is through taxes or debt or, the money printer. And if we want rising prices in exchange for lowering taxes, you have to ask yourself, is that really a good option? And it's obviously not, because that distorts the economy in other ways. And that's a very big reason why you're seeing all this wealth disparity and the increasing wealth gap that Bernie Sanders and AOC always complains about. I mean, I don't remember the last time he mentioned the central banks or the Fed, how all of this inflationary pressure into assets is making the rich more wealthy, at least on paper for now, and making the poor poorer. Especially when you want to cut taxes by increasing government spending. Because in the long run, it's not going to work out well. You can't have something for nothing. And it's a simple law that people should understand. Unfortunately, it's kind of like the kid who always believes in Santa. And it just does not work And, once your parents are no longer providing you with presents, well, you have no more presents under your Christmas tree during Christmas morning. So people really need to understand, and there should be an option here, which there isn't, but there should be an option that says just cut the spending in general. Just don't spend 45 billion. Maybe cut it by 5 or 10 billion. And I think that would definitely be the best option, especially since all of this spending, I mean, it's going to be paid somehow. Now, most likely not through tax increases, because everyone wants tax decreases. And so the most likely option is either through inflation or through a default. But a provincial default just does not seem likely at all. And so what's the most likely to happen is, I mean, eventually, and I don't know when, and it's definitely not an easy thing to predict when, but likely in the future, the government will just inflate away all of the debt and make the debt or devalue the currency so much that whatever debt is left is not even important or significant enough to bring worries to the lenders. Now, the most, if not one of the most contradictory, or let's say inconsistent plans, which they're all quite inconsistent, but one of the more inconsistent ones would be the plans that incentivizes employers to hire more employees, and the ones that want to help workers learn new skills. And this doesn't make any sense at all, because we're giving everybody $2,000 checks every month. And, that's more than what a lot of people make. Now, it's not much, but, I mean, over a year, I mean, that's $24,000. That's a lot of money. And there's a lot of people, and especially the people who got laid off, likely don't make that much. Especially the people working from part-time job to part-time job. And most of the people who got laid off are people in the service sector who cannot work from home. And, there's a lot of restaurant workers, and let's just take that as an example. I mean, if you're going to incentivize an employer to hire employees, what can you even do? You can incentivize the employer, but you can't incentivize the employee, because the employee is getting, basically a paid, the employee is basically getting a paid vacation, or because the employee doesn't have to work and they're still receiving money, which is as much, usually as much, could be more and could be a little bit less, as they would normally be paid. But, I mean, does it even matter if they receive, $100 or $200 less every month? I mean, you get the great benefit of not having to work for a whole month, which is far, far a bigger benefit than, $100 or $200 a month. And why would workers learn new skills right now? Right now you're being paid to not have any skills and just sit at home. So right now is not a time where people are seeking to learn new skills, are seeking the new job. especially because of all of these, government stimulus programs and all of this free money, which if you have listened to my last episode, my last podcast, you would understand that does not create wealth. And, on paper at least, people are not becoming poorer. But in the long run, none of this stuff works out well. And so the government can come in and try to support everybody. But at the end of the day, there is no something for nothing. Just like how you can't lower taxes and have the government spend money. Because again, taxes are what funds government spending. So it just blows my mind how how irrational these options are.